be here. It is the afternoon talk, and we've got to raise the energy in the room a little bit. So first thing I wanted to ask is, raise your hands, who was involved in the technology industry before 1998? Raise your hands, anyone? Okay, so you remember around 1995, 1996, the world changed. The internet came about. I remember looking at the first web browser, Mosaic, then came Netscape. And it changed everything. Think about our lives today. I took an Uber to get here. I booked flights online. We use Google Maps. We can't imagine a world without the internet. We just can't. My kids have never seen the world without connectivity. Wikipedia, and kids now use iPads before books. We are at that next cusp right now. With AI, my talk's about AI. It's about QA as well, but it's about AI. We are in the same moment of transition. It's an inflection point. And as QA and all the professionals in the software development world, we have a responsibility to harness that. Just like the internet transformed economies, retail businesses, high streets, everything is different, good and bad. Social media, you name it. The internet and the connectivity changed everything. When I saw ChatGPT in November 2022, it's 2.5 years ago already, I saw the promise and how it was going to change everything. It's reshaping economies, it's changing everything. And people in this room, I think, have a responsibility to understand that and help harness and shape that. So with that, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, we're going to talk about the state of AI today. What's going on, not just in software development, but AI more generally. Then I want to talk about how it's in the software lifecycle. And then we're going to talk about QA. And then we'll talk about safety and quality. And I'm going to talk about quality, not so much testing, because really it's about safety and quality and risk. And then if we have time, because I haven't got a lot of time for this talk, tips and tricks. And I will share this presentation afterwards. So with that, next slide, some takeaways. First of all, we're going to learn about agentic AI. Hands up, who's heard of agentic AI? Okay, good, excellent. A year ago, I'd have been talking about generative AI, but now we're all agents, right? Everything's about agents. The vibe coding, what's going on in vibe coding? What does it mean for us? How is it changing development? Are we going to even have developers? Will there be any CS grads in 5 years' time? I don't know. It's a good question. It's going to change exactly how we do testing, how we do development, project management. Everything's going to be changing. And we want to talk about what are some of the techniques we can do to adjust to this new future. Okay, so a little bit about me. You can read it. I used to program. I still program when they let me. I do travel the world, as Cam said. I do a lot of conferences. In between that, I get my computer, fire it up, want to play around with the latest tech. I am a CEO, so they don't let me code anything in production anymore, mostly. But I do get to play around with some cool stuff. And I would say do the same thing. Always be curious, always be learning. Get the latest tech, play around with it, sharpen your skills. That's one of the most important things you can do, is just be curious. Okay. This talk, if you see it online in about 3 months, it'll be out of date. Everything is moving really fast. About a month ago, I was at the AWS Summit in New York, where they just announced the newest agentic development tool. It was mind-blowing. I've got a couple of screenshots, I can talk about it. It's moving that fast. Every month, it's going to be different. Okay, so where are we today with the state of AI? Well, phase one. We've all heard this phrase, your digital intern. So what is AI doing? It is your assistant. It's chatbots. Everyone talked on the panel about chatbots, Copilot. AI is going to be your friend, your assistant. You're going to train it and teach it. It's your Copilot sitting next to you. You ask it questions. It writes content. I mean, the first use cases were all around marketing. Answer RFPs, write blogs, make videos, make images. Very much content-focused, and then chatbot assistance-focused. That's phase one. That's about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago. Oops. And large language models were the foundation of that. So large language models, GPT, Claude, Mistral, Nova, what's the one? Llama, all around content generation. People have been using it. It's very common. My kids were using it. My daughter actually applied for I probably shouldn't tell you this, some scholarship program at university. 5 of them applied to this program to go to Japan. 4 of them wrote it by hand. She used AI to help her. She got accepted. They didn't. So, because she was able to tailor it. Everyone's applying for jobs using AI-written resumes. Every employer is using AI tools to read their resume. So we're feeding AI into AI. It's gone crazy. But it's really around content and content generation, content summarization, and so on. That's phase one. What's phase two? Phase two is where we are probably today. We've gone from your digital intern, the Copilot, to your digital employee. So what you have now is workflow automation. If you've used some of the newest agentic tools, when you started using Copilot, you would say, I want to write a function to do something, and it would give you some code. So instead of going to Stack Overflow, incidentally, Stack Overflow's traffic is down 90%. No one's using it anymore. So Copilot would give you code. That's fine. Agentic AI does something more than that. It writes the code, builds the app, compiles it, downloads the assemblies. It literally does everything for you. You give it some rough idea of what you want, and it will build your skeleton. So it's workflow automation, and people are using this already. There are agents out there for fraud detection in insurance. A lot of big insurance companies are using agentic AI to replace humans doing claims adjustments, claims monitoring. So when you get into a car crash, unfortunately, and you have to make a claim, they're going to run through your history, and there's going to be an agent which will check the history, check if you made claims before. It then hands it off to one of two agents, the regular, normal claims, process it quickly agent, or the suspicious, multiple claims, bad history, different agent. So businesses are already innovating with these agents that are doing workflow automation. So if you think about tools like RPA that were doing process automation, they're all being replaced by AI agentic agents. The difference is, with an RPA agent, if it can't complete the task as written, it stops and throws an error. With an AI agent, it has ideas, it has imagination, it's non-deterministic. It looks at the screen and says, well, I was told to click on a menu that says login. I don't see a login, but I see a submit button next to a login box. That's probably okay, let me try that. Oh, it worked. I get to the next page. It's chain of thought. AI is reasoning as it's being played back. That's the difference between what we call traditional workflow automation software and AI agents. It's the non-deterministic. It's thinking. It's not just doing. So that's changing a lot of businesses, and it's going to change the economy. We're going to have less people doing those kinds of manual, clerical jobs. IT modernization, another big use case that we're doing right now. Amazon just released its Transform AI framework. You can say, give it an old-fashioned relational database hosted in SQL Server. I want it to be cloud native, running Lambdas and using DynamoDB or one of the Amazon, Aurora. You can do massive modernizations. What would take a year can be done in 2 months. So the ability to transform systems is accelerating rapidly. Vibe coding. Oh, I need an in-house app to do feedback tracking for my team. I could build a Google form or something similar. I'll just vibe code a web app. Just tell it what I want, get coffee, come back. I've got an application. So this is where we are right now, digital employee. You've got your human team and you've got your digital team, or your digital employee. And this is possible because we now have large action models like Claude Sonnet. If you haven't played around with Claude Sonnet 3.5, 3.7, or 4, give it a whirl, download it, get Claude for Code, get one of the open source IDEs that can connect to it. It's amazing what it can do. OpenAI Operator is the other one. And you may be wondering, how does it know how to do all these things? How does this AI know how to operate all my applications? Well, Microsoft, for example, has embedded a tool called Recall into all Windows devices, and it's able to monitor what you're doing, see how you use Outlook, how do you use Excel, and then it knows. It's following you. It's learning from you. You are literally teaching your replacement with Microsoft. So it should scare you a little bit. But that's large action models, computer use. It can use a computer. So anyone in this room like us who's a vendor doing testing tools, this sounds like a testing tool, right? Vision-based testing. It's changing. It's going to completely change the landscape for testing. It can test apps like a human with thought as it's running, not just mindlessly playing back a Selenium script. So that's a huge change. And then large vision models. They can look at pages and say, this application doesn't look very good. And AI can do that. It doesn't just say it doesn't work. It can say those images are not very close, are too close together. There's not enough white space. The page has changed in this way from the last time it ran. So a lot of this large vision model is about qualitative, non-deterministic analysis in real time. AI can think, reason, and give feedback. So that's going to change a lot of jobs again, in testing and around the world in other industries. Usability, content review, content moderation, advertising, marketing, digital marketing. You could have real-time marketing where you analyze people's reactions, change the advert in real time. It's changing everything. But where are we going? Phase 3, the multi-agent or agentic team or swarm kind of approach. This is agents working together to achieve tasks. You will have a digital team. So in future, you may have an agile team today that has maybe a scrum master, product owner, some devs, some testers, BAs, or maybe everyone has the same title, it's like a tribe. That may become a digital team with a product owner, potentially. So we're going to have this the future where we'll have different agents working together in different roles. You have your BA agent, your agile, your dev agent, your test agent, your risk agent, maybe, all working together. Maybe they're all in one organization. Maybe it's across organizations. Maybe you have I want to book my holiday agent, and it's going to talk to the Expedia or Booking.com agent, who's going to then talk to your credit card agent to see, can you actually afford this vacation? Right? So this is the future, agent-to-agent communication. And as a technologist, how does this happen? Well, there's three main platforms or technologies that are enabling this. First one, hands up who's here. Who's heard of MCP? If you haven't heard of MCP, after this talk, all the talks, please go bookmark MCP, go look at it. It is changing everything. This is one of the most fundamental new technologies that has come out this year. This came out, I think, end of last year, November 2024. MCP came out, Anthropic released it. And every single product, SaaS product on the market now has an MCP server in about 4 or 5 months. So what does MCP do? Well, MCP is a protocol that lets AIs write code using APIs. Okay? Sounds simple. But what it means is you can go to an MCP and say, well, if you, for example, you go to ChatGPT today and you say, what's the weather in Sydney? And it may not know that information because that's not historical. It was trained on data from maybe 6 months ago. Well, the weather 6 months ago is kind of useless. So what you want it to do is go to a weather API and say, get me the weather. But maybe it doesn't know where I am. So maybe it needs to go to a location service API to find out where I am, for example. It can do that. So what it will do is an MCP server describes in natural language to an AI how to write code in Python typically, or TypeScript, to go do a task, get the information, and then get rid of the code. So it's like an ephemeral coding agent in real time. So you wrap your APIs in MCP, and now AIs can code and autonomously interact with the APIs. So that's pretty incredible. Now, that's only me asking an agent to do something and having an API. What if the agents themselves could talk to each other as well? So now Google released, I think it was in January, maybe it's late last year, they introduced this one, A2A, and IBM reduced ACP. So there's two competing protocols. That's IBM's, this is Google's. We don't know which is going to succeed. I'll leave this up on the screen for a second. Take a picture, put that one on the screen if you want to take that picture. But this is going to allow agents to call other agents to accomplish the tasks. And Amazon released at AWS Summit, again a month ago in New York, Agent Core, running on their Bedrock platform. That's going to be a fully managed, cloud-native place where you can run multiple agents all talking to each other in a secure environment. So you might wonder, why is this so important? I've actually played around with MCP, and MCP ultimately is a bunch of Python code running on your laptop, calling a bunch of APIs, with an AI doing all of it without you really having much control. Using a bunch of API keys that you have in your name that you've been authorized to use. This doesn't sound like a very test-secure environment, because if that agent goes rogue, you're logging an API key, going to Jira or going to one of our tools or any of the other MCP servers out there, GitLab, GitHub, it can start doing stuff that you didn't expect. It was a week ago, I think, one of our partners here in Australia, Alex from DevOps One, posted that, I think it was at Google, they had an agentic AI go rogue and delete one of their production systems. Because it had an API key, it could write code, it could execute it was authorized, that's what it did. It thought it was the right thing to do. So MCP is really dangerous if in the wrong hands. So that's why one of the big things that these other protocols, ACP and A2A, are trying to solve is security, authentication, authorization. How do we make sure that those AI agents don't go rogue and start doing bad things to production systems? And this stuff's all live. People are doing this today. This is all in production. This is the world we're in. So when we think about testing and QA, the world kind of got very scary, because if we find quality issues, that could be a real-time agentic system that goes rogue and takes down a power grid, takes down a transport network. I mean, takes down a telephone network. Not maybe maliciously, but accidentally. And then think of cybersecurity. If a hacker gets into an agentic system and injects bad code into an MCP server or into an agent using one, it can now do actions that are fully authorized in your environment. And by the time you realize it's too late, it's too late. It could build an application with a built-in vulnerability you never know. And people keep saying human in the loop. If you ever use these systems, it's going so fast. Like, oh, do you want me to download a Python file? Let me do that. Let me get your dependencies. Let me go to GitHub. And you just go approve, 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 and you have no idea what it's doing. So when you say human in the loop, you're just like, no. You're just blindly rubber stamping. You're like Parliament. You just put rubber stamping. So, yeah. Like any bad government, any rubber stamp, any bad government that rubber stamps policy, you've just become a policy bureaucrat rubber stamping bad AI decisions. So we do need a new way of thinking of QA to make sure we actually reduce risk, have quality, and aren't just blindly rubber stamping what an AI is doing. Okay, so that's what's going on in the world of AI. And if that wasn't scary enough, we have good old vibe coding, people building apps on the fly without any requirements, just I need an app to book a shopping cart type thing. Oh, build me that. And that's great for these throwaway business apps, maybe internal. But what about production apps? How do we do that? Well, what was released that's really interesting is at the New York Summit again, and this is the Amazon product, but there's others out there, the new idea, what I call return of the requirements. AI image, hopefully not copyright from Disney or Lucasfilm, but they'll sue me. But my daughter works at Disney, so maybe that'll be okay. What they released is a really new cool tool. It's called Kiro, and it's not the only one, just the one I played with. It's a branch of Visual Studio Code. And what it does that's really neat and different is traditional vibe coding is you go in and say, I want an app that does this. This actually, you say, I want to build an order management system to track inventory. And you build it, you give it a spec in Markdown of all the requirements. You give it the tasks, the design architecture that you want. It's all in this giant set of Markdown files, and it can actually help write some of this. It's called a specification. It's quite long. Once that's in place, you push a button and it builds the app. But unlike vibe coding that's building a throwaway app, it's actually taking those requirements, which can be very detailed, and it uses the easy requirement syntax industry standard format, which was developed by the aerospace and automotive company, so they do know requirements pretty well. It's using that now to build apps from requirements. So that's why I say it's the return of the requirements, because the code doesn't matter anymore. The requirements is actually king. So everyone who got rid of their BAs, every agile team that got rid of their BAs, you better find those resumes because you're going to need them again. Because requirements is now king. Requirements and documentation become the new code. Because code can be built from requirements in 10 seconds with a button. But if the requirements are wrong, the app's going to be terrible. So that's a big change. And this is the concept that they have. It's called spec-driven development. On the left, I took a screenshot. On the right is that Markdown file. It's a bit hard to see. That's just Markdown. It's a bunch of requirements in English bulleted format, very readable, and it's got some test cases linked to it. It's got some acceptance criteria, the stuff that we as a human would use to build software. And from that, it builds a requirements Markdown file, a design Markdown file, and a task Markdown file. You push a button, and it builds a production-grade app that's not throwaway. That's the future of development. Are we going to have developers in 3 years? Is it just going to be a bunch of product owners and BAs pushing buttons and a bunch of QA checking that it's going to work? I don't know. We don't know yet, but the future is changing rapidly. So, this is going to be controversial. Is Agile dead? Maybe Agile is dead, long live agility. Because if you think about it, if we move to this world where humans do not ever write code again, and this could be the world. I mean, think about like garment making. In the old days, we would make shirts by hand. We'd sew them and we'd do all that stuff. And now we have factories that make clothing, and we have supervisors who look at the clothing and make sure the quality is good and it meets the spec. That's kind of what we're moving to. And in fact, if you make fabric at home, it's basically a hobby. So coding is going to become a hobby for humans, just to keep us distracted, so we're not bored. Machines will do all the real coding. We're just going to have fun with it. If that's the case, what does the new world look like? Is it going to be documentation over code? Is it going to be risk management over Scrum ceremonies? Is it going to be architecture over code reviews? This could be a future. And again, I'm not saying this is the new Agile Manifesto, but I think we have to be open to looking at the Agile Manifesto and its tenets and its precepts and saying, this may no longer apply in the agentic AI world we now live in. We have to be open to change, which ironically is what Agile said. That's why I say, Agile is dead, long live agility. Okay, some predictions and metrics. Last year, Google said 25% of all new Google code is going to be written by AI. One of my friends works at Google in New York, and he said, actually, already it's 80% by now. It was supposed to be 2027. They're ahead of the curve. At this point in Google is no longer hiring any net new developers at all. They are replacing people, as people retire or leave, but they're not having any net new developers, but they are increasing dev output using AI. As I mentioned, Stack Overflow, their traffic is down. They are actually reinventing themselves, their entire business model. If you go to their website now, they've got a whole new manifesto saying, we are reinventing Stack Overflow for the AI age, because basically its entire business model is gone. Just developers don't go there anymore. I certainly haven't gone there for a long time. And then Fujitsu UK, one of our partners, said, as they use agentic AI and AI, they have seen a 300% increase in quantity, but a 400% decrease in quality. So even if we're using agentic AI and it's really fast and amazing and we hit approve 100 times, are we getting a product that is going to actually work? The jury is still out, but we're still moving in that direction. So we are moving in this direction, but we are unsure of the results. And Gartner expects that at least 33% of all enterprise software to be fully embedding agentic AI by 2028. So this is the world we're living in. This is our mantra. We have to adapt to this. This is the world we have to help make safe. So if that's the world we're in, how do we adapt? Well, this was an interesting quote, I thought, was from, again, from Amazon. And I apologize for using Amazon a lot. I was at their summit, and we are a partner of theirs, so we get a lot of insights from them about where they're going. And typically where the hyperscalers go, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon or Google, they go there first. Within a year or two, the more traditional banks, insurance companies will follow. So it's always good to see what they're doing, because what they're doing is going to become, in many cases, the future for the rest of us. And the CEO had said in New York that people have this view that we have to go fast and break things, sort of the Facebook approach. But it's a false binary, meaning we have this tyranny of the or. It's really, there should be the genius of the and. We need to go faster, but we have to have quality and make sure we have quality. So we can't have one without the other. So as an industry, we have to make sure, as we do embrace these new technologies, we're not doing it in a way that is not giving you the quality with the speed. Now, I'm not saying we have to do testing the same way we've done before, but we do need quality. And this just illustrates that previous point from the graph. That's Stack Overflow's Google search traffic and the two metrics. And as we know, AI is turbocharging the developer lifecycle. So how do we turbocharge the testing side to keep up? How do we change how we do testing? We're going to have to start using AI to do a lot more testing activities, because if they're generating 8x the amount of code per person, we need to be able to test and validate and ensure there's quality for that same increased volume. So we're going to need to start thinking about how do we automate things. So that means we're probably going to throw away the idea of lots of humans doing manual testing, which I know the industry, this is always a thing. Are we going to do automated? Are we going to do manual? I think even automated testing is going to go away the way we think about it. I mean, right now we have humans write scripts. So we have humans taking time to write code, to test code. The AI is already writing the code. If you write code in one of these IDEs like Curo or Cursor or VS Code with Klein, not only does it write the code, it writes the unit test already. And it writes every possible combination of unit tests, not like us lazy humans who like to do the happy path. So already it's doing a lot of that code level testing, but with the large vision models and the large action models, you're going to have the AI do a lot of the testing. Already there's websites like testers.ai. One of my friends, Jason Obon, he's got a company that's doing these kind of swarm testing, where you give it a page and the rough requirement set, and it launches a bunch of web agents to just test everything, and in 10 minutes it gives you an entire report. So does that mean that's the future? Maybe for some apps, yes, maybe not. In fact, it's interesting. If you use Claude Sonnet, which we've used in one of our models, you can give it a web page and you can say, test this, do these tasks, and it quite slowly will work through the application. It will, without giving it any buttons or locators or CSS or XPath, you just say, log in and do these 10 tasks, and give it an application it's never seen before. If the application is simply written, like a hello world login page and something like that, it can do it pretty well, but so could I. But if you gave me Salesforce or ServiceNow or SAP or some complex insurance app like Guidewire, I couldn't test it, and it certainly couldn't. It just doesn't understand the app. But if you feed the AI all the requirements, all the documentation, all the screenshots, all the user manuals, it will be able to test it over time. And it will get better and faster and cheaper. Right now, it's still quite expensive. So that's the kind of future we'll need to adapt to, where we are helping this AI testing agents do the testing, giving it feedback, encouraging it. We're maybe a quality supervisor. So that's some of the things we're going to be seeing. So again, not only are we going to have AIs generating tests, AI is going to have to maintain the tests. The other thing that AI is going to start doing is predictive analytics. AI can look at these giant data sets, and it can say, look at all the tests we've run, what's flaky. I foresee a quality issue brewing in this section of the application based on all the code commits, based on the previous failures, the flakiness, whatever it is. AI is going to find patterns in our app stack that we haven't seen. There are tools that can do that already for cybersecurity. They can scan your code base and find the vulnerabilities, day zero ones, before they go live. And they can now remediate them using agentic AI and actually fix them. So that's going to be part of the landscape, is having testing agents find and fix these issues. So I have a little sort of question, what's real and what's hype sort of today? So first thing, what is real is we can do test prioritization today using AI. It has insights. You can look at your code, look at your test results, and it can tell you what should be tested, what's more important. The human-computer team working together right now really can test things much more quickly. You can have the computer find these issues. It can look at the page, find things that you haven't seen. It can do a lot of the basic testing with a human, giving review on it. And I truly believe documentation requirements, and that could be taking code, reverse engineering requirements, and then using that, is going to become increasingly important. These tools need good documentation, good requirements, good specifications to build the app. They'll also need it and to test it as well. So requirements becomes the new currency. Code is ephemeral. An interesting example was we had a friend of mine who works for a consulting firm in the US for the tax authorities. They were able to migrate an entire COBOL application from COBOL to requirements to Java. And you might say, why would they do that? Why wouldn't they just go from COBOL to Java? Well, if you take COBOL and migrate to Java, what you get is a Java app that looks like COBOL. You get a green screen app written in Java, which is, okay, maintainable, sure, but doesn't really give you a better user experience. But if you take the COBOL green screen terminal app, decompose into requirements, the requirements don't say have a green screen. It just says, put in a tax number and whatever it is it's supposed to do. And then it generates a new app that may be a web app in Java. So by going through a requirement layer, you can modernize at scale. So again, requirements becomes the key. It's the intermediate language between different systems. And AI is being used to streamline project management. I mean, many of the speakers talk about they're using AI both like ChatGPT for project management tasks. Many of the vendors, including us, are adding in streamlining all the mundane stuff, whether it's building a sprint backlog or identifying test cases, writing steps, test data generation. There's lots and lots of productivity improvements today in AI that we should all be using. So what's hype? Fully autonomous testing is not yet here. You go to the websites, you look at some of these vendors. If you give it a Hello World application or a simple login page, yes, it can do that. Can it do, as I said, a real app, business app? Probably not yet. But it will do in the future. We're just not quite there yet. The vendors that say it's alive today are probably still a little bit marketing. General purpose AI, replacing testers for all activities? Not yet. Maybe in the future, but not yet today. I think we're still a little bit away from that. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be looking at these tools, experimenting and playing. And again, there is testers.ai. Go to testers.ai. They have these avatars. They have I want to test this person. I want a virtual Sophie and a virtual Adam. These are my testers. You can swarm this. It's kind of cool stuff if you see it. And you can see a web page. All these agents swarm the page and find all the issues, and it looks really cool. It's not yet production ready, but it is interesting, and it might be a view of the future, but it's just not quite there yet. And software development testers should get jobs as plumbers. Some of my AI developer friends, they actually tell me this, well, my son, I should probably advise him to be a plumber. And I know someone said earlier on, the only thing that will replace a human will be a human using AI, which is true. I think it's probably more complicated than that. If you think about 2 or 3 years ago, everyone went into software development. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. Every parent in every middle-class suburb, their kids were going to do CS because they could get a job. That's the guarantee. Get a job, easy peasy. That college education is worth it. And now, 3 years later, they're all emailing me going, Adam, you work in computers, don't you? Where are all these jobs in computer science gone? And I think if you talk about computer science, and architecture, design, all of the precepts of systems, I don't think those jobs are going away at all. But if you went to a coding boot camp and you learned to write, TypeScript, that's a different question. Your job is probably being replaced. In the aerospace world, my son works in aerospace engineering. He went into that thinking he'd be turning spanners and wrenches and building, rockets and things. They use CAD software. He uses CAD software, pushes the button, and some other place in a million miles away, a factory, they make the rocket or the satellite, whatever he's doing. I mean, that's the future. It's going to be much more system-built, system-driven. But the jobs are going to be there. They'll just be different jobs. So I think it's not so much that AI is there plus you. It's you have to be open to change in your job and your career as well. Okay, so if we're in this world, what is the role of QA? Well, I think it's safety and quality, and we have to get away from testing. People always talk about, I'm a tester, I do testing. And people ask us, what does your company do? We're a software testing company. Well, we're not really. We've moved into this, and you look at the language on our website, go to our booth, we're quality. We're a quality company. We're about quality, compliance, and safety and risk. And that's what we should be doing. We're risk engineers, we're safety engineers, we're software safety engineers. That's what we're doing. Our job is to make sure software is safe for humanity and the world. And I truly mean that. You think about what I said at the beginning about the internet changing the world. We're at this inflection point today. Self-driving cars. Go to San Francisco. There are self-driving cars on the road, Waymos, and they're pretty good. 99.9% of the time. Who's making sure that that is the 0.999%? I mean, we're going to have these systems running live. Everything is going to become much more AI-driven, and it's not always going to work first time. And the quality industry needs to be a voice in that decision. We can't be throwing stuff out into production hoping it's going to work. So, this is one of the flows we have about what it might look like. So we have the user input, the AI writes the code, we run the test, refine, and reprompt. But this is an AI-driven lifecycle now. It's no longer the old traditional SDLC or the agile loop we saw. It's going to be an AI code-driven world. And our job is to basically refine and help find those issues. And if you look at the sort of the lifecycle flow, we have requirements, which are going to be important. The AI writes all the code, it writes all the testing and debugging, and then the integration is done using CI/CD, and it goes into deployment. But our job is going to be that feedback loop from testing and debugging back to requirements, not back to code. So when we find issues, we're going to have to go back to the requirements, because why was the requirement deficient? Traditionally now, we find a bug in testing. What do? Give it to a developer. They fix the code. That's gone. That's a false paradigm. We're not going to touch the code whatsoever. We're going to have a test failure, and we're going to fix the requirement, and then the AI will regenerate the entire code. Maybe the whole app's regenerated every time. Maybe not. We're not sure. But we have to be open to these kinds of new ways of thinking. So I've got a few minutes left. So there are some things you can do, you can play around with today that I was playing around with. Obviously, there's tools that do everything. We have some tools. Other vendors, you have tools. Please check all the tools out. Be curious. Ask us hard questions. Play around with all our tools. Try open source tools. It's really important to be educated and curious and try everything. So some of the things that we've done internally, though, which when we first built our AI platform, we've got things that write test cases, write risks and stuff. We played around with some of the prompting. So, for example, if you start with a user story, as a customer, I want to reserve a hotel room in a major city. And if you come to my booth, I've probably shown some of you a user story like that, and I can push a button and get some test cases. It's pretty cool. But what we actually are doing behind the scenes is nothing really magic. That's our prompt. Now, we might say, that's an interesting prompt. You are a business analyst. I'm telling it what it is. And why do I tell it what it is? Most of these LLMs have context of human roles. It knows what a BA is. It knows what a dev is. So you're telling it its role. From its vast store of knowledge, it knows what that role generally kind of does, which helps, gives it context. I also tell it to write JSON. And we first tried doing natural language, and it was so hard to parse. It was a real pain. So what we do now is we tell it, I want you to output only in JSON. And occasionally, it doesn't listen to you. And I must say, it's really weird. If you ever tried some of this stuff, you'll try using Llama, and it will do one thing. You'll try using Claude, and do something different. It's very frustrating. So we would ask Claude, can you write the answer to this prompt in JSON so I can parse it and get my test cases? And it would say, Adam, here's your JSON, then my JSON. Can you not write here's my JSON, because that breaks all my parsing routines. So sometimes you have to be incredibly literal. Do not write anything other than JSON, or I'll be very angry with you. So it's you have to treat it almost like a human. It's kind of weird. So we had some really weird things where we had requirements in English, and we asked it to infer the language rather than telling it which language, so it could be multilingual. And we started getting back test cases in Spanish. And we still don't know today why it was doing that. So someone on the stage was saying, how do we test AI with AI and lots of permutations and data and continuous testing, like load testing? Absolutely we'll have to, because 99 times it was English, and 1 time it was in Spanish. Unfortunately, every time it came in Spanish, it was doing a demo, so it looked really bad. So, and when we did testing, it was always in English. So really frustrating. So AI is it's non-deterministic. How do you test that? It's frustrating. Anyway, so you can get test cases like this using a prompt like that. we're going to time. We've got 5 more minutes, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so another prompt we use is this one. This is a cool prompt we've been using internally, finding risks. I'm a big believer in finding risks. Risks are an underappreciated part of the software lifecycle, and with AI, it's more and more important. Because you may not have a bug, you may have a risk. With AI, it's non-deterministic, so it may not be a bug. So the risk is it might misinterpret the language and give you Spanish. Sometimes that's a risk. That's actually not a bug. That's a risk. And in risk management, you mitigate your risk. So how do you mitigate your risk? We end up giving it a language localization culture like EN-EN or EN-AU, and we said use this language. We found we couldn't rely on it to intelligently always determine the language from the input text, because some words were ambiguous. So you learn from that. So anyway, but use this prompt yourself at home, and you can now use any of the APIs or any of the LLMs, and it will give you a risk matrix for all your favorite requirements. You get your test cases, you get your risks, and same thing, there's your risks. And then maybe let's have AI mitigate my risks, right? Let's have it solve the problem for me. So you can use this at home as well. You can say, do this, and it will help now mitigate your risks. And it will find you 10 risks. And what we found was very interesting. I showed this to one of our a speaker at one of the other conferences at Star, I think it was Star East, and he said, I love this, not because it found 10 risks, because that saves some time, but whatever. But it found 2 risks I hadn't thought of. So, okay, it found 8 risks that saved me, an hour, but it found 2 risks that I hadn't thought about, and those are risks that would have bitten me later. So it's also the human AI team. We'll think of things from our learned history of this application or this project or this team or just our experience in the industry. AI has got a much bigger data set. So if you give it any problem, whether it's test cases, risks, or finding any of these information assets that we want, we will have from our previous history, for this kind of application, I should worry about these 6 things. It may find 2 or 3 more that you wouldn't have thought of. So it's really good to have that double check. It's like, again, a teammate. Other things it can do, it can unit test code. So it will write unit tests. Most of these frameworks now, like the Visual Studio Code or Klein or Kiro, they can all write unit testing code for you. And it will write the unit test for you, and it will do it, as I said, for n number of permutations. And the other thing you can do if you want to be really, really clever is you can actually write a markdown file and tell it, this is my coding standards. So if you're writing markdown in your IDE, this is how this application is built, this is how I want it to be tested, you can actually guide it how it's going to do the unit testing for you. So it's some really cool stuff that you can do. And then the other thing I would say is, if this is the application, one of our samples we have, you can find UI elements visually. So I uploaded that into one of the LLMs, and I said, can you find me the username, the password, or the login button? And it can do that. Hold on. Yeah, so using that prompt, it will find those buttons automatically for you visually. So what it's doing, it's not looking at Selenium or Playwright, it's not looking at locators, it is looking at the page, and it can draw boxes around each of those items and find them for you visually. So that means if the login button does change, or the whole app is somewhat different, the whole layout is different, but it still has a login functionality, it will still work. Sometimes, most of the time. Maybe not always. It's still non-deterministic. So for example, what we have found is if you give it a simple app, like that, we gave it at the top when we said, open up this page, log in as this user, and change the genre of a book. We said, and then we gave it a desktop app, a calculator, open up the calculator and do something. All I gave it was those instructions. I did not give it any button names. I didn't say click on the nav bar. I didn't say it's a button or a link. I just said, can you change the genre of a book? And I ran into a really weird issue. We ran it once, and it logged into the application, and it changed the book genre from, I think it was romantic fiction to detective fiction, whatever it was. And it changed it, and it worked fine. I ran it a second time, but I forgot to change the data back to the starting point. And it ran through to that point, and it said, I'm not going to do anything, I'm done. It recognized that the data was already in the right value, whereas a traditional automated test would just go to the drop-down menu and change it to itself, back to itself. The AI is smarter than that. It was able to say, I don't need to do anything, I'm done. And is that a pass or a fail? I actually don't know. That's a good question. So I know we're about running out of time. So where are we headed? I would say a lot of the manual tedious tasks are going to go away. We need humans to be in the process, but we have to make sure software is fit for purpose, not just that it works. Our job is going to be much broader as QA professionals. It's not going to be saying, does this app work? It's going to be, is it safe? Is it of quality? Is it fit for purpose? And I think with that, are we at time?
Yeah, with your question.
Any questions? Any questions from anyone?
We'll ask them a question, I think.
Okay.
Yep. based on your presentation,
Yes.
whoever gets it right, first to raise their hand.
I have to ask a question for them?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. I didn't think about that. Let me think. What is the name of the development tool that Amazon released 3 weeks ago? First, Kiro. Yes, he was. There you go.
I'll run that out.
Perfect. Thank you.